Many people think that you're going to get into your career, it's going to be a smooth road and you're not going to have those ups and downs. That's the furthest thing from the truth.
Why is it that By the Type allows you to do proper revenue management, but By the Unit doesn't?
We said to ourselves, we need to make the pivot. We could leverage all of our expertise so much more going down this path than the OTA path.
You were coming in against massive players, nationwide leaders, getting started in hospitality.
We proved very, very quickly that our model works. We're able to outperform the biggest players in the industry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hospitality Edge podcast, where we bring together what we think are two sides of the same coin, real estate and hospitality. We bring here entrepreneurs, operators, investors, and leaders in the space so that they can tell us about their stories, their background, the lessons they've learned along the way, maybe even some of the mistakes they've made along the way, so we don't have to make those same mistakes ourselves. Today, I'm super excited and happy and thankful to have Nick Falcone, CEO at NDM Hospitality. Thank you so much, Nick, for being here today. Could you tell us, please, first of all, where are you based? And just give us a quick background of what you are up to these days. What is it that you spend most of your time doing?
Yes, Sebastian, thank you again so much for having me on the show today. I am based out of Central Florida, so I live in Kissimmee right now, very close to Disney World. And my business of NDM Hospitality is multifaceted. We're actually in a lot of different businesses, but right now our key focus points would be in the sectors of real estate, resort hospitality, food and beverage, and management of real estate, such as multifamily, built-to-rent homes, and retail centers. So we're doing a lot of different stuff.
Right. There's a lot there to unpack. So if you don't mind, Nicholas telling us a little bit about, how you got started. So let's go back to, let's say, entrepreneurial wise, like what was your first business? How did you get into entrepreneurship in the first place?
Yeah, so my first business that my brothers and I founded was back in 2011. We were the founding franchisees for a company called BurgerFi. A lot of people are familiar with the BurgerFi brand. It's been around, since that time or whatnot, and now they're in most places around the country. I want to say there are over 100 locations up to now. At this point, how we got into that business was really based on influence from our family. My father was in the restaurant business when he was a young man, and was one of the early franchisees for McDonald's, and then after that Wendy's. And just hearing him talk, he's always been a mentor for my brothers and I, and hearing him talk about his career path and all the things that he was able to take from food and beverage and parlay into his real estate career and all the things that he has done. It really just got us motivated to go down a similar path and to explore that same type of path. And, I'd always worked in restaurants growing up, as well as real estate, through the family business. As well as throughout college, got some great experience in management roles and other roles within food and beverage. And when my brothers and I graduated from college, we were very, very bullish in figuring out how we could take it to the next level. So had some great opportunities when we got out, built that experience, built that disposable income, through management roles, and also some quasi-management ownership roles where some companies were providing opportunity for young individuals to come in and turn around stores for sweat equity. So took that experience and started looking for ways that we could invest in our own, in our own concept, our own restaurant, and that's what led us to BurgerFi. We loved at the time everything that it stands for. The food is spectacular, the ambiance, the brand identity. And so we've been loyal franchisees for quite some time, over a decade now with them, and continuing to be very successful with that.
And I want to ask you this because there's something about food and beverage people, at least the ones that I've come across, where they're very top notch. Like they're very disciplined. I mean, again, the people I've come across. What do you think it is about either the education you go through or the works experiences that you guys tend to have when you're early stage in those food and beverage roles that you think sets you up for success later on?
Yeah, I think that when you look at food and beverage, it has a lot of different components that really train you in a way that gives you a comprehensive look at how to manage and own a business. So what I mean by that is, number one, unlike a lot of businesses where you may be able to manage it from a corporate office. Food and beverage is something where, if you really want to be successful, especially in the early stages, you have to dive head first. You have to roll up your sleeves and be in it. There is no better way to understand how to maximize your success and your profitability in the food and beverage space than to experience it yourself at the ownership level and figure out how you could optimize the efficiencies of the store. So I think that, a lot of people think of restaurant as glamorous and I'm going to go buy a restaurant and it's going to be a great fun time. You have to be ready to work a lot. So I think that the discipline comes from that work ethic, the fact that if you're not in the stores, you're probably not going to be very successful, or at least when you're starting up and you're creating your process and your infrastructure and your team. So I think that's one major component that gives food and beverage owners and managers a lot of discipline, a lot of work ethic. The other component about food and beverage that we love is, like I said, the fact that it really gives you a comprehensive skill set. So when people think of owning a restaurant, they probably don't think of all the real estate components that go into it. The site selection, the negotiation of leases, the ability to look at what other comps are doing in other locations, and all the different things that go into that selection before you ever open the doors or even put a shovel in the ground to build your restaurant. The real estate side of it is really, really key, and you learn a lot from going through that process. Then you go through a build out, and you learn about what construction's like and going through change order processes and, contracting with the GC. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you learn from food and beverage that people don't think about. People think you're going to go cook food and you're going to go sell food, but there is a major real estate component. And, I think when you combine that with the detail aspect of managing at the ground level, rolling up your sleeves, counting pennies, it just tells you about process. It tells you about, how to manage and motivate individuals. And all of these things are stuff that you can apply to other businesses, which we've been blessed, to have that experience and to be able to take that and leverage that in other things that we're doing.
And we'll get into what came next, but before that, you mentioned that your dad was the one that was originally, in the restaurant world, and that he was a big mentor for you and your brother. What would you say if there could be one principle or advice that he passed along to you guys that has had the most impact on your success? What would you say that would be?
Oh man, that's a hard question because he's had so much influence on who we are as men, as professionals. So it's hard to pick one thing, but I would say when it comes to food and beverage specifically, probably the biggest thing that we took out of his advice was just not the work ethic side of it. What really needs to go into a business to make it successful, and not just taking for granted the fact that you could just plug someone in and think that it's going to go the way you want it. So I think the mentoring of understanding that it's not always going to be pretty. You're going to go through ups and downs. You're going to have to roll up your sleeves and figure out, how to be successful and how to work through those challenges. That's something that I'm blessed to have that guidance, because many, many people today think that you're going to get into your career, you're going to get into anything, it's going to be a smooth road and you're not going to have those ups and downs. And, that's the furthest thing from the truth. Really, in my opinion, success in anything is going to come down to how much you could persevere through the challenges and how much you could work through those and be creative on how to come out the other side in a positive way.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And what came next? I mean, when do you start to diversify somewhat away from food and beverage specifically?
Yeah. So, first year, of owning our own restaurant, the first restaurant I would say was really, 7 days a week, open to close. We'd open the restaurant at 6:30 in the morning. It would be there till, midnight, closing the restaurant pretty much every day. I think we took 2 days off the first year, my brother and I. From there, and why we put so much effort in was we needed to create the processes and procedures. There were, to BurgerFi's credit, there was a lot of process around recipes and how to cook. But there was not a lot of process around really much of anything else. Keep in mind, we got involved with them at a very, very early stage. So, for us to get to the point where we could expand, we had to have those processes in place and be able to train our people and build that infrastructure around us. So that was kind of the first year. From there, we felt very confident we can go open up store number 2, work through some of the kinks of being spread out, and refining our processes even more and our infrastructure even more, and then started opening up more stores more rapidly. We got to the 5th BurgerFi opening, and that's where my brothers and I really felt confident that we could divide and conquer. And my youngest brother, Matt, really started to take lead on the operations side of the BurgerFi, while I started to look for ways to expand the business into other avenues. And the next expansion play really came over a dinner table conversation. Going back to my family, my father went from restaurant into development and became one of the biggest private developers in the country. Over the preceding decades after his restaurant career. And we were talking about one of his properties where he was selling real estate, and most of the buyers wanted to know how they could rent their properties. They wanted to rent them short term. And as a developer, you can't really talk about those things, nor is that the business he's in. So he started explaining how he hired two dedicated property management companies to answer these questions. And something about this conversation intrigued me. And I said to myself, I wonder if we can be in that business and we could help complement, what he's doing on the development side, and come in and maybe take over some of the management and provide that as a service. And I mean, I could go on forever about all the things we learned about the vacation rental business and whatnot, but we had a really great entry into that space. Number one, because I had never worked in hospitality, never ever prior to this conversation stayed in a vacation rental. So we had a complete blank slate. And after that conversation and just being intrigued by the concept, I started staying in vacation rentals just to test them out, learn more. And I had great experiences. I had bad experiences everywhere in between. But the first experience was kind of what drove me to say we could do something in this space and do it better than everyone else. And it was because, again, I stayed at the vacation rental. I got to the unit, person wasn't there, didn't have any clue what to do, no clue how to check in, called the guy. And my first ever experience was, hey, Nick, I'm really happy you've arrived. I'm down the street at McDonald's getting some lunch. I'll be there in 30 minutes with your key. So, I'm used to getting to a hotel, checking in. They know you're coming. They're ready for you. That was a weird experience. And then when I went into the unit, it was dirty. There were trash bags from the previous renter. It smelled. There was all kinds of issues. And I said to myself, wow, I wonder if this is how the industry is. From researching it further, what we realized very quickly was that the vacation home industry is mom and pop. It's very destandardized. You can go to a resort community. There could be hundreds of homes that are all operated to a different standard. So no brand standards. And what we also found was that, there was really no concept of resort vacation rental. And what I mean by that is there was nowhere you can go that's a trusted place where you're getting branded accommodations with resort services and amenities present that you could feel confident that in what you're getting. And so that was kind of the vision behind what we then created, which has now become the business of rental resorts, spelled RENTYL. And rental resorts is a brand. We also co-brand with other brands. And what we provide, again, is a brand and management platform where we advise developers on how to build and structure both legally and as an asset, positioning of how to build these vacation rental resorts, the site plan, the amenities, the house, itself, what to put in them, how to brand them, how to legally structure them, you name it. And then once the property is built, we put our brand and management over top and we become almost, the Marriott, the IHG, let's call it, for vacation rental. So it's a very unique business model. No one really in the world is doing what we're doing. And again, we've had a lot of success and a lot of growth over the last 9 years.
That's impressive. And if you don't mind walking me through those early stages of you starting to play around with this concept in your head. And, I'm curious to know, what was the original vision and game plan, and whether where you ended up is any different from where you thought you would be? Like, as far as like right now, it seems like it's consulting, right? And then once the construction is done, then you come with the brand and the management. But was that the plan, or were you thinking we're going to develop some of these ourselves? Were you thinking we're going to be just a normal property manager and then you switched? Like, how did you get to this model?
Yeah. So going back to what I was saying before about, big mentoring lesson I learned from my father, I think, key thing I could say about where we started and where we've come is that we've pivoted a lot. We've learned what works, what doesn't, and we've made the necessary pivots to continue positioning ourselves in the best place. So to answer the question more specifically, though, when I first started the business with my brothers, we did not anticipate being a brand. We anticipated simply creating a management company and providing guests with a better experience,
Hmm.
by providing these amenities, services, and consistency in the properties that we were managing. So the thought was, we were going to be a management company that provides a different level of experience to the consumers. What we found very, very quickly, number one, is that consumers love that. So from a guest perspective, that has not really changed since the beginning. That's still our motto. How do we provide these branded accommodations in a resort setting? Now, there has been, though, a lot of changes around that. So one of the things we didn't anticipate when we first started was how much we could create technology and create a marketing approach that's way different than everyone else in the space. And so, early on, I did not anticipate building technology and having a software side of the business. But what we really realized very quickly was that for us to accomplish everything we wanted to do with brand standards and resort setting, we couldn't really use the tech stacks that were used in a traditional vacation rental. And not only that, but the hotel tech stacks didn't work either. So we had to create a hybrid kind of middle ground between the two that allowed us to optimize our business further. Once we did that and we started seeing the impact that made on our marketing and our revenue generation, we started outperforming the comp set in our market by 200 to 400% plus. And that's when we really realized, wait a second, we have something here, not only that the consumers love, and they love the elevated experience and the services and the brand standards, but we now have something that for the homeowners, we could provide significantly higher returns, and we could turn this into something that we could grow very quickly. So that was kind of the next step. From there, when we went into resort number 2, resort number 3, and we started again just multiplying our management side of our business, we the second resort we did was with a brand, and we started to get a flavor for how brands work in this space. And that's when we started to think a little bit differently. I wouldn't say we took the brand approach yet. We actually started to take a distribution platform approach, where the thought process was, let's become, the OTA, online travel agency, dedicated for people that want spacious accommodations, but they don't want to sacrifice the resort experience. There wasn't really a home for that,
Hmm.
an OTA or a place where people knew that that's what they were going to get. So we said, let's position ourselves in that way. The learning from that was really that for us to compete in that space, we had to, I think we just had to be bigger. We had to have much more scale. I had to raise a lot more money, from that perspective, to keep up with all the players from a marketing perspective. And we can do that. But what we found was a more productive approach is what we're doing today. And that's where we said, instead of being an OTA where we're not guaranteed to get bookings, let's take the brand approach where we're taking brand fees. We're able to really leverage our technology and our expertise and our IP to provide value to developers, provide value to owners, and really just replicate what we've done in our markets up to that point. And since we've made that pivot to the brand platform, we've had just tremendous success and upside, significantly faster growth. And that started, to give you a timeline of when that started, we started the company about 8.5 years ago. We didn't really go into the branding side and the growth side until about 3 years ago, right
Hmm.
after COVID. So that's kind of a newer side of what we've been doing, but it's grown considerably.
Interesting. And so 3 stages. So you had the original, just not branded management model. Then the second stage was the trying to be an OTA model, and then third stage is when you came in with the branded approach. Let's tackle one at a time, because I just want to understand a couple of things. One is when you were starting with the first stage where you wanted to be a management company, did you did you know right away that you were going to be a management company but for developers, or did you ever work with individual owners? Because I think a big part of what's allowed you to have the scale you have now with thousands and thousands of doors is the fact that you work with
Yeah,
large developers and resort you know
yeah.
communities and whatnot.
Yeah, great question. So that is one thing that has never changed. We've always had the intent to work with developers. We very quickly learned the churn that you have when you're working with individual owners. Typically, the contracts are very short term. And with our marketing approach and our distribution, we're booking things, as far as 2-3 years out. So we just couldn't take that approach based on how we structure our business and how we promote our business. So we've always had the intent to not work with disparate inventory or individual owners, and to really work with developers, focus on full resort community management, not again the individual houses, and to be able to do longer term contracts that allow us to really leverage our booking platform and our distribution strategy.
And to dig deeper on that, I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
that the strategies for growing with that kind of a target are way different from just your traditional property manager that works with the individual owner. How did you
Yes.
go about getting those, let's say, first uh, resorts and developers? Like in the first place, was it a lot of like, because you can find homeowners relatively easily online. You can find, there's databases. Yeah, there's a lot of quote unquote easy ways to find those homeowners. What did that look like for you on the during the early stages?
Yeah, so we're somewhat blessed, that our family business was in the development space. The good thing on when I say that though is my father's a great human being that really coaches us properly and doesn't hand us anything. So despite the fact that we obviously have a father that's in the development space and that's the first community that we did, there was a criteria. As I mentioned earlier, there were two property managers that were already brought into the community that had to meet a certain criteria to become approved property managers through my dad's development company. And so when I learned everything about the industry and then started studying the criteria, I came back to him and said, Dad, I'm going to invest in creating a company. I'm going to meet all of your criteria that you have. And I just ask that if I invest and I make that happen, that you provide us with the license to compete with the other two companies and see if we can perform better. So that was our in the first community. And because of our marketing approach, we very, very quickly outperformed. And these two companies that were already in there, they were two of the top companies in the country or even the world for property management. Within a year, one of them was out of business because we outperformed them so drastically that they couldn't survive. In this community, the other one maintained, and we've had a healthy relationship working alongside of them. But we proved very, very quickly that our model works and that we're able to outperform the biggest players in the industry. And I think that because of that history, we've been able to parlay that that historical performance into a lot of new deals, and leveraging that first experience. So, I'm blessed that I had that in to be able to, speak to our family and have that conversation. But, it took a lot of hard work to position ourselves to meet the criteria and then obviously outperform the players so that we could show that and parlay that into new business. So really proud of
Uh,
that.
and that's massive right there, because you were coming in against massive players, nationwide leaders, and it was your first time, and you were, as you said, getting started in hospitality. That was even a new sector for you. So what could you attribute that success to? Like, what was unique about your approach that allowed you to get those kind of
Yeah.
results?
Yeah. So imagine, I mean, first and foremost, imagine, I'm the new guy on the block. I have no homes in my platform. And I'm going to homeowners that have the option to go with me or these guys with thousands of homes in their platform all around the country. So just imagine the difficulty of that pitch early on, and getting people to trust. So I think one of the biggest, things that really helped us early on, was our personalities, our genuine approach, to the homeowner relationships, and I think that homeowners really felt a lot of authenticity behind what we were embarking upon and what we were doing. And I think that what really sold us over the competition, again, was our unique approach to marketing, and to the owner relations side of the business. So one of the things, just starting with the owner relations side, is that my wife and I, and then after that, we trained some individuals that really became very good at that side of the business. But we have dedicated owner relations ambassadors that are really available all the time, anytime, to answer any questions, cater to the owners, provide answers to any of their questions, and really become almost a high-end concierge for them. There were other companies that were doing this, but I think that we took it to another level and again put a lot of authenticity and a lot of relationship building behind that. And so the owners saw that, and I think they really felt, our passion. But that only goes so far. People can make business decisions based on who they love to work with. They got to see results. So I think what really also helped was the fact that we were pitching a very unique marketing approach. And to give more specificity behind that, what everyone in the industry was doing, and what they continued to do, is book what's called by the door. So if you look at any vacation rental, they're booking every individual unit on its own. So if I wanted to stay in this house, that address, I could do that. I get to select that house, that address. And at that time, when we started our business, only about 5% of the worldwide travel market was booking by the door through Airbnb, Vrbo, those type of channels. The other 95% of the world was booking by what is called allocation on arrival. And this is what virtually everybody knows of when they book a hotel. They don't select the exact room. Like if I'm staying in a hotel, I don't get to select, I want to be in room 543. I get to select a king room type. And when I get to the hotel, they tell me what room I'm going to be in. It's one of the king rooms that they have available. So that is what's called by the type or allocation on arrival booking. And that's how 95% of the worldwide bookings were occurring, at that time. Nowadays, it's a little bit more skewed. It's still significantly the AOA, by the unit type, but it's grown a little bit more by the door. So you can imagine if you're a vacation rental operator and you're limited to a 5% piece of the travel market, in which you're generating business from, and then we came in with technology and an approach that allowed us to do both simultaneously. We're able to, through our technology, book by the door, by the type, automate the booking process and the distribution, as well as to third-party distribution partners. That alone allowed us to open up our exposure and our marketing to 100% of the worldwide travel market. So, it doesn't take a lot of expertise to understand that, if you're talking to 100% of people versus 5%, you're going to have a lot more success. Now, with that, it was a lot more than that. We set up dedicated sales, marketing, and revenue teams. So because of the fact that we were doing resort, where we had bulk inventory in one place versus disparate inventory, I'm able to do group business and wholesale business, and we had meeting space in our resorts. So I'm able to really create a lot more segmentation of where bookings are coming from. And because of those two things, again, we outperformed our competitors significantly. And it did not take a very long time for owners to catch on to this. At first I was pitching it. It was all theoretical. We got a few owners to get bought into it, and then others started to see how they were performing, and it became a landslide of people coming into the program. So that was, I would say, the two main factors that really helped us generate that early success.